Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is hooks and hook points. Hooks, when you buy them, are generic. They're generally the wrong points for the hooks you want to use. We're talking mainly about blue marlin fishing now. Nearly all the light tackle or light gauge hooks are pretty good straight out of the box. Some of them have got barbs that need cutting down. But when you start fishing for blue marlin with the heavier hooks, you certainly have to adjust the points to make them right for the breaking strain that you want to use. Our double extra strong hooks, which are these, are handmade and actually made the points right. So there's no problem with the double extra strong hooks. But the standard hooks, when you get them, they've got a very fine point because the main market wants very fine points. And strange enough, the main market actually wants large barbs, which is all pretty wrong. If you're going to use this on 37 kg line, and you should be using 12 kilo of drag, those points are much too fine for that much drag. So you actually get a file and you reshape the points. Now, this is one of the things that's actually changed over the last 2 years, is the way we sharpen points. It sort of finally dawned on me that the way I was sharpening, because it was actually quite wrong, because the direction of pull is actually at the eye. That's where all the strain's coming from on the hook. So rather than sharpening the point in line with the point of the hook, it just makes a whole lot more sense to point the point and sharpen the point aiming at the eye, because that's the direction of pull. And strangely enough, that has actually really increased the hookup rate spectacularly. Now, it doesn't take long to change the point of a hook. We'll do it now. If somebody wants to count it, we should be able to do it in around about 10 seconds. All we're going to do is get a file. I kept calling these wrong. They're actually a bastard file, single cut, but it's not a fine cut, it's a second cut. Anyway, you get them from Bunnings. They're pretty cheap. Treat them as a disposable item. They last about 100 hooks. I guess that's a lot for you blokes. It's not a whole lot for us. And when you sharpen it, just aim the point so we're just aiming the point at the eye of the hook. I'll exaggerate this a bit much. And that's all you've got to do. It's basically just a couple of seconds, and you can see now that that point is aimed at the eye. I haven't sharpened the underneath of the hook because that will actually make it skate rather than dig in. So here we actually want that point to pivot in. The other thing about this rig is that the hook is loose. And the reason it's loose is because when a lure is going through the water, it's not going at a constant speed at all. If you look at your rod tip, you'll actually see that your rod tip bends over, straightens up, bends over, straightens up. Basically, when the lure breathes, dives down, it actually puts a lot more pressure on the rod, and the lure is actually accelerating down as it dives down. As the lure is coming up, you actually see your rod straightens up, and the lure is decelerating, so the lure is continually accelerating and decelerating. And the way a hook normally travels if you're going slowly is it actually travels with the bend down and pretty much the point in line with the eye. As you increase speed, there's more pressure on the back of the hook and it rides up. It never really gets quite parallel to the wire, but it basically gets up to an angle. So the whole time your hook wants to do that when it's cycling. Pretty much it's doing that every 5 seconds. If you just heat shrink that to there, it will still try and do that. It'll basically do that. And you'll basically notice that after, depending on what lure you're using, if you use this lure with that head on it, which is a very violent shake, if you heat shrunk that hook on this wire, that wire would fatigue in around about 2 hours and your hook will fall off. But if you leave the loose loop there, the hook can move and the wire's not going to fatigue and it won't break. Okay? The thing is, if the hook can't have that motion, then the lure is going to spin. And you'll notice that if you take your ball bearing snap swivel off out of the system after about 20 minutes, grab your line, pull it together, and you'll see that your line's actually spinning and twisting up. This really does diminish the amount of twist you get. And the thing is, if the hook is spinning It's not aiming at the roof of the mouth of the fish. It's just variably spinning around or laying on its side, which is most common, or it's just spinning the whole time. Now you can sort of see that I've actually got a ball bearing swivel there, and that's because some lures spin. We all sort of say that our lures are perfect. You know, I made this lure, it's a Pakula lure, it's bloody perfect. I can guarantee that lure is perfect, but it's not. It's a molded item, and even if the lure head is totally symmetrical, the skirts aren't. They're handmade, they're hand poured. This has got two colours on it. So is the bottom skirt. That silver bit with the single colour is thinner than the bit with the two colours. So there's a weight difference there. So if it's inconsistent, that lure's got a possibility to spin. Now, over the years, people have rigged lures all sorts of ways, where they're upside down, they're sideways, the lures are spinning. And the reality is the fish don't care. They don't care if you're trolling your lures upside down. They don't care if they still eat them. There is absolutely nothing natural about a lure. It's about as natural as a dog chasing a ball. And especially if you're running down current and don't give the fish a whole lot of time to make its decision, then whatever the lure is doing is just fine. To me, the most important job of the lure, once again, is to have vibration, which all our lures do. And we don't want to restrict the vibration by stiff rigging the hook, because that does restrict the action of the lure, because it wants to shake around, it wants to shake its head, wants to do that. And if you've got a stiff rig, it actually restricts it. So I really do like the loose rigs very, very much. The single hook rig has been doing just fine. I won't even bother talking about twin hook rigs tonight, because this rig has been doing just fine. There is another complication of this rig where we actually put a keel weight on the bottom of it, which is great for keeping the hook point up if we're trolling really rough conditions, but you're in trailer boats, you're not going to be fishing 30 knots. And if you are, apart from needing a psychological report, get some keel weights. And probably the dumbest thing you can do in 30 knots in a trailer boat is actually hook up, because it gets pretty tense. Okay. I know of an awful lot of accidents on single hooks. In fact, I know of more accidents using single hooks than twin hooks, because people are assuming it's safe. They do things like pull in a lure, clearing gear, and they put it on the ground. Somebody walks along, kicks the hook, gets it straight through their foot. Single hooks are still really quite dangerous. People get a fish up alongside of the boat. They don't use a snooter. They don't use a bill rope. They grab the bill, especially on fish that are over 50 kilos. They grab the bill. Billfish don't like it. They slam their hands against the gunnel and they break 3 or 4 fingers. Certainly getting the hooks out is safer, no question. But we have situations where the guys have just dived in there to get a hook out. They've ended up with the fish from there to there, the hook through their hand, with the barb through the other side, and they're connected totally to a marlin, and they can't get out of the situation. They really are in a lot of trouble, and they do damage their hands, they do damage their tendons. If you're using single hooks or twin hooks, you still should have a decent set of bolt cutters on your boat that can cut through the biggest hook you're going to use, and test them. Keep them in a plastic bag, oil them. On all of my boats, I've actually had a set of bolt cutters big enough to cut every hook we've got on board, one under the transom and one under each gunnel, so you can actually get to it straight away. Accidents can happen, and no matter how experienced or good you are or fast you are, accidents can happen. And generally they happen because of somebody else doing something stupid, you know, like putting a rigged lure on the deck instead of putting it away because of the panic and stuff. I strongly suggest that when you do form a team, that you do practice all these scenarios on what you're going to do when you hook up, who does what, and practice it in the broadwater before you even go fishing. And then you're going to have a safe crew and all that sort of stuff. Plus there's angler exercises and all that kind of stuff as well. Oh, okay, so she's already caught a marlin. All right. There's a lot of controversy about some of the rules and all that sort of stuff in tournaments. And if you do get new guys, just say, if they've got any questions, ask them before the tournament. Ask the judges. Don't ask your mate. Ask the actual judge. They're generally at the briefing. And if you're worried about whether your gear's qualifies or is legal or not, take it along on the briefing night and get the judge to check it then, rather than go through all the effort and expense of going through a tournament and then getting disqualified. Okay? Just a little bit of advice there. Okay. That's pretty much all I really wanted to cover tonight. You guys want me to talk about anything else? Yeah, well, you were actually one of the first clubs where I actually did show the flippy floppies too. Wow, they're highly successful. We sell a heap of them. They've been working incredibly well. A lot of the guys in trailer boats are now trolling them higher by actually having a little breakaway off their rocket launcher, like a mini tagline, and they're actually hanging them up high, and they do work a lot better. A couple of the guys were sort of saying, "Oh, it's too big, it's too long," so we've cut it in half, and we run half on one side and half on the other. They have actually 4 segments. Can you hold one up, Brent? Yeah, okay. And the guys are cutting them in half, so they've actually ended up with 2 teasers. Certainly during Wahoo season, I don't know what they cost, about $150, $75 a teaser is a pretty good value. And they're absolutely devastating. We sell mainly pink ones, but the greatest success is actually on the purple ones like Brent's got there and the blue ones. If you're trolling pink ones, then you troll them pretty much off your outriggers because they're a nice bright light colour. If you're trolling them off your transom, then the darker colours, the blues and the purples and the blacks are certainly the ones to choose. Okay. It's the same with the lures. Closer to the boat are the darker colours because they're in the whitewash. As you get further back, you go through to the lighter colours. I'll just run through those quickly for the new guys. Closest to the boat, you run black. Black and some combination, any combination you want. This colour is called Billy B. It's been doing incredibly well. Next colour out is blue. Quite often this one's called Fallen Angel. It's blue and silver over, once again, pink and orange. Very successful. Then we go out to a purple. Oh, this is a new colour. It's called Purple Storm, Kona Storm. We actually did this back in the late 80s. Nobody would buy it, but it's now known as a pretty good colour off the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. So that's Kona Storm. That is one of the new ones. Then we go to green, which is, this is Grasshopper. It's actually the latest version of our Lumo sprocket, and it is certainly outfishing the normal Lumo sprocket. Another colour that's done very well is Illusion. It's another Lumo bluey green colour that's been run off the shotgun, but the colour that really is blitzing it is Brad J, this orange and pink. And as I said earlier, it's run off the shotgun or the short rigger. Probably the most successful colour off the Gold Coast at the moment for all species, blues, stripes and blacks, which is surprising, which is very surprising. Okay, we make a teaser called the Witch Doctor, which is a deep diver, goes down a few feet, wobbles a little, doesn't wobble as much as the older versions did, because we actually found that by wobbling that much, they weren't really that effective. We toned it down a bit, and the new Witch Doctors are incredibly good. They're never in stock. We get a batch of 100 made at a time. They last about 2 weeks. I think we've got 3 left in stock at the moment. There won't be any more till end of February. Off this string that tows the Witch Doctor, we actually put 3 flash strips. I'll see if I can actually find a version of it. Should be on the internet somewhere. Let's have a look. Teasers. The colour loaves, teasers and dredges. Yeah, we do dredges with strip flashes on them, like everybody else, I guess, it is in the market. Once again, we're selling an awful lot of those. They're, you need a downrigger weight to troll them effectively. Um, I think they're better being trolled using bait. If you're going to be trolling skip baits or dead baits, I think they're a great teaser for that. Pretty difficult to use when you're trolling lures, I think, personally. Oh, great. So that's not working. You do? All right, if you can show them that, then that has been highly effective. And the most effective system of the lot is deploying your witch doctor first. And the way you deploy your witch doctor is, I like it actually on the long corner side. I actually drop out the cord first and drop it back to where the long corner lure is. Then I pull it in 2 handspans, which is around about 10 foot, tie it off, put the witch doctor down there, and then I put the flippy floppy or the Pakula digger, which is a pretty similar item, and actually where the flippy floppy came from originally. And I run the flippy floppy just short of the witch doctor, hoping that the wahoo leave it alone and that the mackerel leave it alone, and it gets to last a bit longer. And it's been pretty effective. Generally, the wahoo just eat the lure, the long corner, and they just leave the teasers alone. So that's a pretty effective way. And I actually do that on both sides of the boat if I've got the crew to do it. Now, how important are teasers? Are teasers more important than lures? Yes. If I was fishing solo, I actually run a full pattern of 5 rods and 4 teasers because I'm not that concerned when I hook up. I actually enjoy the hooking up. And little black marlin don't go that far. You in a trailer boat, you actually go forward when you're fighting the fish. There's no need to back up. So all you really need to do is move the rods around each other. To clear the rods, you don't really need to pull them in until everything settles down. So even short crude, I still use the full spread, but if you sort of think you're trolling too many things, then perhaps troll 3 lures and 2 teasers, and that would be a lot better than just trolling 5 lures. Teasers are very important. They're very, very effective. There are lots of them. The dredges are good, and we do sell an awful lot of them. I think most of them are used wrongly. They do break. If fish attack them, they will snap and they will break. In America, they're considered a disposable item. In Australia, because they're so expensive, people expect them to last a long time. They don't. When they work, they break because they get broken by fish attacking them. Okay. For those of you who've had the strip teasers before, we actually used to have them with metal eyelets in them that rusted out pretty quickly in some places. All our strip teasers now, the fish strips, have plastic eyelets so they won't rust out. What was really interesting for those of you who are into the science of game fishing is that the places where they rusted out fastest, which means they had the greatest area of magnetism, because the corrosion when you're trolling is actually caused by an electric magnetic field generated by going through a conductive medium, which is salt water, over the Earth's surface. That actually what corrodes your chemically sharpened hooks when you're trolling and corroded these eyelets. What was interesting is that they corroded fastest in the world's best fishing spots, which is the Gold Coast and Exmouth. They rusted out in about 9 hours of use. In places like Sydney, which aren't great fisheries, the eyelets lasted 45 hours. In New Zealand, they lasted around about 35 to 40 hours. So it was really an interesting thing, and I've actually asked Julian Pepperell to see if he can find someone that can do a study on this, is that areas with the greatest magnetic field seem to be the best fishing spots. Now, perhaps the marlin are attracted to these fishing spots because of the magnetic field. Anyway, I want to do some research in it, so stay tuned for that. Hadn't we stuffed up with the metal eyelets, we'd never have known this. So having a stuff up may well lead to some great information in the future. Okay. Any other questions? Or we? Oh, look, the mud flaps, we've got them. I don't think they've got a whole lot of use in Australia. You can certainly use them on the back of the flippy floppies. As dredges, I don't think they're anywhere near as effective as the strip teasers. The strip teasers really do seem to have that down pat. The addition that you can do to the strip teasers, though, does anybody remember the lures called Wonder Wobblers? Who used a Wonder Wobbler when they were a kid? All right. If you can get a hold of large Wonder Wobblers and you actually put a Wonder Wobbler on each arm of your dredge and then your strip teaser behind it, it actually gives the strip teaser a whole lot of action. And the Wonder Wobblers, of course, flash and do all the wobbling and stuff. You'll actually find that they get a lot more action, a lot more spark. Even if you've got some other lures like, I don't know, even Rapalas or something that you don't use anymore, they're worth putting on between the dredge and the arms of the dredge and the strips. It just gives them a whole lot more life and action because the strips really don't do anything. They're pretty much lifeless and they don't have any action. So it certainly gives them a lot more effectiveness. Okay. Yeah, really, the barrel lead's okay, but they still come to the surface too often if you can keep it down. And the idea of having a dredge really is getting it down around about 12 or 15 foot, which isn't all that practical for lures because you can't have a bait down that far. If they're up near the surface or just under the surface, they're really not doing anything more than a flippy floppy or a witch doctor, which are just a whole lot easier to use than downriggers with weights and dredges, or having to pull in a dredge that's got a lot of weight in it by hand is very difficult, and the fish gets a really good head start on you. So, they've got their uses, but I'm not so sure about lure trolling. Certainly with bait trolling, where you're going a lot slower, it's a whole lot easier to pull the dredges in and that sort of stuff. But also in the trailer boats, it's very difficult to have somewhere to put the dredge. If you're going to use a dredge, use a 12-inch because it fits in a 20-litre bucket. But the 24-inch and the 36-inch ones are really a pain in the butt on a small trailer boat. Okay. One of the things about using teasers is anybody there using bait and switch? Okay, we've developed a lure. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called the Airhead because there's nothing in the head except air. These are 3D printed, developed by Peter Morse. You actually put your bait in that skirt, and that actually fits up tightly into the lure head. And these are actually absolutely deadly and devastating. This is actually one of the first ones we sent away. The guy sent it back because the screw got ruined by Wahoo and he thought it shouldn't. So I said, fair enough, mate, we'll just give you a new one, but don't buy any more because Wahoo will go through skirts. Everybody that has bought them has reported that they're very, very effective. That's the largest size. We do them in what we call a 10-inch and an 8-inch. We can do bigger ones if needed. And once again, you'll see that that's the same color Brad J that has been absolutely devastating in the bait and switch lure as well. If you're bait and switching, one of the secrets, and you guys probably know this, and it's a little difficult to do in a trailer boat, is when you're pulling in the teasers, don't pull them in over the side of the boat. Like, don't pull them in over your outriggers. You should run your teasers as well as your lures off taglines, because when you pull them into your outriggers, you're actually pulling the fish that's following it to the side of the boat. You pull the teaser out of the way, it'll actually just disappear. If you pull it over the transom, the fish won't go past the transom, will actually circle back and stay behind the boat. So just note those things. Certainly go into neutral when you're trying to pull a dredge or a teaser over the back of the trailer boat, but then go straight back into gear and get the boat moving once again. Okay? It's one of the main tricks of the superstars of teaser fishing, that they never bring the teasers in over the side or up the outriggers. They actually do run taglines for their teasers as well. Okay? Yeah, pretty much. Or slimies or garfish fit in them pretty well as well. There's a video on my YouTube channel that's got Peter Morse rigging them and explaining them. Okay. No, Peter's not just a pure fly fisherman. No, he doesn't. He sort of fishes with guys that will um, will fish for all sorts of stuff. You know, they go fly fishing for a little while, and then they get upset because they haven't caught anything, so they go to normal gear. Okay. That's it there. That's Peter Morse's video there, which I can actually play for you here, I guess. But anyway, have a look at it on my YouTube channel, and it's a pretty interesting setup, and it's been incredibly effective. Okay. All right. Now, doing these webinars is really easy for me to do. It's a lot better than spending a day getting ready for a talk, then driving for a couple of hours, spending a night somewhere, then trying to come back and catch up with work. If you're new to fishing or you've got a new crew and stuff and you want to do a Pakula school or something like that, we can actually do it like this through the webinar if you think this is a decent enough medium. It means you can be comfortably at home or through the club or all that sort of stuff, and we can go through and do the hours you want to. Okay, there is a charge for it. It's not much for what you're going to gain out of it. These lectures are good, but you know we can only do a couple of hours at a time. We pick a couple of the topics so it doesn't get too complicated, and I hope you find this medium effective. Who likes this medium in the way we've done it tonight? Can you put your hands up? Is it effective enough? Yeah, great. Well, that's good to know because then I can do a lot more talks, maybe even do a little 15-minute session at almost any meeting or every meeting. So it's a great medium. I've set up the studio to do this sort of stuff. We've got a bunch of cameras, and hopefully you catch a lot of fish. And good luck in your tournaments. And thanks for letting me be a sponsor of your club. It's one of the best clubs that I know of, and I reckon it is the best club in Australia. And you guys are doing an absolutely fantastic job. And thank you for supporting the brand and the club. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Signing off. Yep. You know, one of the biggest problems of being a lure maker, and this is for all you young blokes out there who think you want to be a lure maker, when you have a great season like this, you're so busy making lures, you don't get to go fishing. I have yet to get on the water this year. All right. Fantastic. And also on the Pakula Marlin Bar, which is now active on Facebook as well, that's where you can ask questions, get information, and certainly post up your pictures and stuff. The other thing too is with Pakula tackle, when you buy Pakula tackle, you pretty much buy a lifetime warranty. Guys are surprised when they send me photos of lure heads that have cracked or skirts that have gone stiff and stuff, and they sort of say, you know, can I get this replaced and stuff? And I say, yeah, that's fine. We'll send you a new one. He goes, how much? I go, no, it's still under warranty. So when you buy a Pakula product, the warranty pretty much goes forever within reason. You know, our stuff isn't Wahoo proof. It's not totally idiot proof, although we do try our best to do that. And, you know, certain things do affect products, and it's a production product, and things go wrong in production. Batches are crap. We had, with the airheads, or actually the 3D lures that we make, we actually had some black ABS that wasn't treated properly when we made it on the machine. It looked fine, but it deteriorated almost immediately within a couple of days, and all of those broke. No problem replacing them, and we pay the post to replace stuff as well. So when you buy a product, it's pretty much guaranteed, hopefully to catch fish. We'd like to guarantee them to catch fish, but we can't invent fish. But this year, boy, you're going to have a good time. There's so many fish along this east coast in New Zealand and all the way through, but not quite to Hawaii. They're basically on this side of the Pacific, and there's thousands of them. So good luck for the season, and catch as much as you want. And I'll be thinking of you while I'm sitting at my desk skirting another goddamn lure. All right. All the best, guys. Thank you. Good night.